Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hello, and here I am. This is no commercial endorsement, but I'm at the kosher Dunkin' Donuts having my coffee. Gan Eden Ha'elyon.
Wonderful. Originally, we were talking about over the
I will
phone.
stir the coffee with my straw.
Oh,
They
wonderful.
don't give you spoons here.
That's weird. So what we were talking about originally was that Bibi's speech yesterday and everything that was happening outside of the speech, and talking about a lot of Jewish people and their comfortability of the way America is going and the feelings people are getting now of boiled frog theory.
Boiled frogs?
We've
They're
talked
not
about
kosher.
this. Yes, very
Frog?
funny.
Now, frogs, eggs, and wine sauce, I understand, is a delicacy among a lot of the non-Jews.
I heard it tastes like chicken, from what I've been told.
I think everybody says that. Iguana. Like I spoke to a man from Panama who eats iguana. He said it tastes like chicken. Everything. I think if you don't know what something tastes like, quite, you go, it tastes like chicken. So
Yeah.
that's like an overall, a general taste or something.
Amen. So I was hoping you can go ahead and maybe elaborate on your perspective and maybe see, where that takes us.
I'll tell you this truth, Saj. Sometimes I ask, I don't know if something's wrong with me or what it is, but when it comes to stuff, I'll tell you the truth, I don't know what to think. I see things happening on both sides. On the other hand, we see the pro-Palestinian demonstrations, which is frightening to many of us. I'm sure that there are many on that side that are that are probably anti-Semitic and just covering it up, just saying, oh, that they're for the poor Palestinian people. But I'm wondering how many uneducated people, misinformed people, really are not anti-Semitic, but are, on this side because the information they've gotten has been very slanted, and they really feel that the Palestinian people are being oppressed.
But then again,
so I think there's right now, and as far as like the reaction of our law enforcement people, okay, the reaction of a lot of those three college presidents was actually horrendously horrible. I think their over intellectualization had caused them to lose their moral compass. I mean, any violent or active demonstration where, like we saw how these demonstrators on the college campuses were targeting Jewish students, blocking their way to class. In some cases, they were even being threatened with violence. And that's crossed the line, or that is already passed. You have the right for peaceful protest, self-expression, true, but you don't have the right for violence or even threatening people violence. And that these over-intellectualized college presidents couldn't take a moral stand and say this is horrible and this is, reprehensible, and get a hold of the ringleaders that were responsible for this and have them expelled from the school. I'm sorry, that did cross a line, but the promising thing about that was that we saw that there was a reaction by many non-Jewish government officials, especially in Congress, that brought these three presidents in and really grilled them. And I was thinking about the senator from Missouri, conservative, Josh Hawley, I think is his name. He just came right out and said, this is the United States of America. This will not happen here. So that part of it, I think, is very promising in a way. I'm hope, but on the other hand, like I said, the Jews, as Jews, we're still burned by what happened in the Holocaust. And we're worried that you know, that there were many German Jews who also felt that they had non-Jewish friends that were very supportive, and they felt that not everybody was on Hitler's side. And as a matter of fact, I saw something that in one of the historical sites that Wilhelm II spoke out against Hitler and was so appalled, he left Germany. And he eventually died, was buried in I think it was Switzerland. He left Germany because he said he wanted no part of what Hitler was doing to Germany. And he predicted, he says Hitler was going to destroy the country, especially his anti-Semitism. He was very much against his anti-Semitism. And so what's frightening is that you had people in Germany also speaking out, but look what happened in the end.
You know, and I'll counter that. I was listening to this comedian. I'm not sure if I mentioned him to you before, Ari Shafir. And his father went through the Holocaust. I think they were Romanian. And he said honestly that he doesn't feel like the anti-Semitism physically being there manifested is as big as you think, and that the internet kind of plays into this idea of how horrible things are, and you wind up obsessing and seeing more and more because you're obsessing and seeing more and more. But if you go outside and talk to people and have conversations, you'll realize that it's quite the opposite. And I don't totally disagree with him, because when I'm working, there's plenty of people with different varying opinions, but I haven't really seen it myself. But then again, what happened in DC yesterday, that was only 45 minutes away from me, and there was someone that spray painted "Hamas is coming" on one of the monuments. So
I saw the Liberty Bell there too.
That wasn't Liberty Bell; it was another bell.
Okay,
yeah, I think it was I'm trying to remember. It's the Freedom Bell. That's what it was. It was the Freedom Bell.
I saw that. So that is scary. And again, where were the police?
They were trying. They were trying to break up the people, and literally they were attacking the police and dragging them away. So the temperature is rising. The temperature is rising, and it's getting to a point where people, are starting to get a little nervous, especially when it comes to, who to vote for and what to vote for. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of liberal Jews out there, and they're normally voting Democrat because they agree with the policies, but they need a leader that's gonna, be strong against anti-Semitism. Because look at France right now. Look at, England. Look at all these, first world countries that are slowly deteriorating because of all this anti-Semitism. So it's just like, well, what are you going to do, and how are you going to do it?
That's the truth. I'm in a quandary. I don't know. I pack our bags and leave. Wait and see.
The fact that you don't know.
Have your passports up to date and ready. I remember. I remember. How you ask the average Jewish person, where do you keep your passport? The average Jewish passport either keeps their passport on them at all times, or they have it on the night table right next to their bed in case we have to make a quick getaway in the middle of the night.
It's funny and sad at the same time, and the fact that you don't know how to respond already shows what's going on. Because if you knew it wasn't a problem, you wouldn't have to think about it. but you have to think about it means something's up. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you know, I want to believe that everything's going to be fine here. I want to believe that it's all going to work itself out. I want to believe that I'm going to still have my home and everything, but there's a part of me that's like, I don't know. I don't see, you know, where's this country going to be in 5 years?
You know, I remember though, when I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
was when we had the Baltimore riots. And
Okay.
many of the businesses that were targeted in those riots were Jewish-owned businesses. And I mean, it was almost like another crystal knock, you might say. But you know something? We came out of that. We get, I mean, things didn't go downhill after that. As a matter of fact, things actually kind of improved. I mean, a lot of those areas were renovated. They called in, but the governor called in the National Guard, and they really did it. They really cracked down and arrested the looters.
Yeah.
And then a lot of Jewish businesses then got sold to the Koreans, who 20 years later got the same treatment.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's the whole, that's what I find so interesting. Baltimore still never recovered from what happened in the riots of '68. They still have a depletion of a population. You know, they were like up to like 1 million by the '60s, and now it's at, I think, around 300,000 or maybe 500,000. I'm not sure. But that's the
downtown traffic. It's still crowded. It's still hard to find a parking space. That's like New York. Every time you pick up the newspapers about New York is losing population. New York is losing population. Ask anybody, who's in New York or driving around New York. It still takes me 20 minutes to find a parking space.
Yeah, you're probably right. You know, that again, that's why I like what's going on now with everything. It's very chaotic and very uncertain. But I guess in a way it'll work itself out and it's gonna be fine. There's what I do notice the difference now than other times is we're definitely, as Jews, we're more self-aware of our Yiddishkeit. Like what Bibi was talking about, just saying that Israel is God's gift to the Jews through Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. You know, the Israeli government has never made that statement before. They've never mentioned why Israel is there. You know, they bring it up, oh, it's because the Holocaust, but that's not really why we have Israel. That's not really why we chose Israel, because it's our homeland. And I think there's more of a stance now of stating like this is our homeland, and also unabashedly, making those statements where there's more pride and there's less fear nowadays.
Coming right out. Well, I remember there was this girl I met in Crown Heights, a college student who was there for one of the Chabad Pagishas. And she was telling us a situation one time on campus where all these, Goyish students were debating with her about Israel being, the Palestinians and the Jews. So, the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, the whole banger.
And this is going back to the 1970s. So it's nothing new.
Yeah.
So anyway, so she was trying to give them all these reasonings and, logical reasonings and facts and figures. And finally, she just said to this guy, she says, the land of Israel is ours because God gave it to us. And this guy who was debating with her, who was arguing with her, all of a sudden stopped. And he didn't know what else to say. He just stopped. He just went, oh, okay. And the argument ended when she came right out and just said that right to his face.
Well, that's why I find so frustrating when people try to argue with these people. They don't want to argue. They want to, get a rise out of you. So they say and do certain things to get you upset. But it's just, you just ignore them. You just can't focus on them or give them that energy. You know?
Well, I remember your father telling us a story that they had a substitute once, at Pikesville High School. Now,
Wait a second, Ema.
what?
Sorry,
Can you hear me? What's the matter?
I can hear you now. I didn't hear
Okay.
anything else.
Okay, let me get. Okay, probably was okay, so anyway, he was so the substitute didn't know the class was like totally Jewish, and they were reading something, one of the Scholastic current event magazines for high schoolers. It was about the Israel situation with the Palestinians. So the substitute makes the mistake of saying, "Imagine the Jews think that land belongs to them," and the whole class went in one voice, "It does." And she was like, she got this hair on her face, like she was not expecting that reaction.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's expecting that. Or yeah, I think Jews are done being cowards and done just placating to other people. I find it so frustrating when people do that anyways, when like a lot of Jews try to like lean into that. It's very cowardly, and so it shows such a lack of faith in God and a lack of bitachon, you know. But yeah,
have you ever, I mean, I remember like, some like incidences of anti-Semitism when I was a kid. We went to a few of them, but there was this one place I was working in college on campus, and there was this girl who was very anti-Semitic, and she, within earshot of me, her name was Michelle, and she said something about some sort of Jew, bitch.
oh
So I said nice and clearly for the whole room to hear, "Oh, today must be Michelle's liberal day.
wow.
Love your fellow man, right, Michelle?"
I don't know. I heard some stuff when I was at work in this one place. This guy just was my boss was just not a very happy person, very grumpy. And like I was trying to help him because he was and I think I mentioned this before on the podcast, another story. There was a client, a Jewish client, and they brought in a architect from Israel, and he's just trying to be friendly, and he's just trying to socialize. So he's like smiling at everyone, winking at everyone, just trying to socialize. And my boss is like just revving himself up, getting all angry. And then we leave, and he starts yelling and cursing and screaming and talking about this guy, how the guy's trying to undercut him and take away the project from him, and he's just out to get him. And he was just about to like say something, and I knew it was going to be anti-Semitic, and he saw me, and he just stopped right away. I'm like, it's just ignorance and stupidity and fear, so they go to the least common denominator and they just hold on to that.
But it's so funny when we're there, it's like, ooh. There was my father tells an incident where during World War II he was on furlough, and he was going back to his army base in Louisiana. I forgot where he was. He was taking a bus. He had just finished, his leave, and he, his furlough, and he was going back to the army, to the Air Force base. And he's on this bus, and these boys are teasing this girl. These teenage boys are teasing this girl on the bus about her looking Jewish. And she's crying, and she's telling them to get away, and she's not Jewish, and they're teasing her and teasing her. So my father couldn't stand the way that they were tormenting this girl. So my father, he was in uniform. He says to them, "Leave her alone." And they looked and they go, "Hey, soldier," they go, "You look Jewish too." And so my father says, nice, loud and clear for the whole bus to hear, "I am." My father said that entire 2-hour ride, he said you could have heard a pin drop on the bus. Everyone, it was total silence.
Yeah. Speaking of being told you look Jewish, the same horrible boss, I don't know how we got into this conversation, but we were talking about looking Jewish. I say I look kind of Jewish, it is what it is. I think it looks fine. And then his wife, who was also the administrator, went up to me. She's like, "Oh, you look kind of Jewish too." And he's like, no, I'm not at all. Just got really all upset and angry. I'm like, oh God, this guy. He also said a few other things like random nasty stuff. He was just a constant yeller, constant screamer, just a real piece of work. You
Yeah.
know, I still see, you know, stuff on Indeed of his company trying to look for workers because they're always looking for someone because it's just miserable to work with. Just his constant temper and just the exhaustion.
I know something interesting about certain workplaces. It's like if you see this one workplace that all the time, every time you pick up, you go on the internet or whatever, always has, or in my day would be the newspaper, the one ads,
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same places. They were always advertising that they needed people, they needed people, they needed people, they needed people. And then you either apply and work there for a while, or you talk to people that have, and and there's a very good reason why they constantly need people because they're such a horrible workplace. People are always quitting on them.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to be able to when you're interviewing for a place to see, are they trying to retain their workers? How do they retain their workers? And just ask them, flat out, like, hey, I see, am I an addition or am I, a replacement? And how do you keep workers, and what do you do to keep your workers, satisfied with the job? It's just, that's what's so important. You're running out of time, but I guess I'll give you a call.
That's life. We are always